before crossing in. I spoke with one woman who has been visiting her partner by air in Michigan. She gave me a top secret tip for Canadians coming home.
I like to be a cheapie. I will go wherever I can find a place that's free. And my test I didn't pay nothing for.
So there is free testing for people in the States?
Yeah, CVS, Walgreens, and they have some drive-through spots.
But with the reopening not happening until November, the rules still could change. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
And speaking of that, in the last hour, we heard from Public Safety Minister Bill Blair on this. Even though a test isn't required to get into the States if you're fully vaccinated, Canadians who want to do a day trip to the States will be allowed to get a COVID test in Canada before crossing into the United States. Then they'll be able to use that test result to get back into Canada instead of having to do that in the States before their return home. We turn now to a story that you won't see anywhere else tonight. Exclusive details about the Ford government's plan for easing COVID-19 restrictions in Ontario to be announced next week. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has more.
Since midsummer, Ontario has been in step 3 of what the government calls its roadmap to reopen. In the 3 months since then, a few restrictions have been eased in piecemeal fashion, leading up to last week's announcement that all capacity limits at Ontario's big sports venues would be lifted. There's now more to come next week. A senior official in the Ford government tells CBC News the province will unveil a new pandemic plan. The plan will end capacity limits in all locations where proof of vaccination requirements are in place, such as restaurants, bars, and gyms. It will also indicate when that vaccine passport system will become optional.
This is a temporary and exceptional measure, and we will only use these certificates for as long as they are needed and not one day longer.
We owe people a clear plan to exit the roadmap, the official said in an interview today, adding that work on the plan began months ago and the government is finalizing it now. The official said Ontario will not lift all public health measures and pretend the pandemic is over. Indoor masking requirements will remain in place. But the plan will also signal when capacity restrictions will end in settings that don't require proof of vaccination, such as places of worship. Why now? Ontario's top public health doctor hinted at the reasons last week.
I do think it's a balance between having high immunization rates and adhering to just the basic public health measures. And Ontarians deserve thanks and simply praise, as certainly from me, because we're able to keep our rates of illness low.
The return of nearly 2 million students to Ontario's classrooms last month did not bring about a spike in the province's caseload. In fact, the opposite has happened. Ontario's fourth wave of COVID-19 was rising until early September when school resumed, and since then the average number of new cases has trended downward. And a key factor in that has been the success of Ontario's vaccination program. 88% of the eligible population has had at least one shot, while 83% are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Next week's plan will also give details about what Ontario will do if there are spikes in new infections. Officials say any restrictions would be imposed only locally, wherever an outbreak happens. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
The Windsor Essex Health Unit has closed comments on its social media platforms after a surge in nasty interactions with the public. The CEO says that there have been a number of protests at the COVID-19 vaccination clinic. She and her staff frequently get calls and emails from angry people. Police have been called in some instances.
Over the past few weeks, we've noticed an escalation in the level of sort of language, and it's crossed the line at times to threats and abuse, and sometimes threats of physical violence towards our staff. And so, you know, I know Dr. Mehta spoke about it in the past, and just felt it was important to remind the community that there are people. These are people doing their jobs. They're doing their best for the community, and you know, abuse and violence and threats are not appropriate.
There are 31 new cases in Windsor, Essex today, 21 ongoing outbreaks. Province-wide, there are 306 additional infections. That's the lowest number since early August. Meanwhile, as the region crossed 20,000 total cases of COVID earlier in the week, we've also crossed the 300,000 mark when it comes to the number of people who are fully vaccinated. That's nearly 70% of the population. And people in Windsor, Essex are being encouraged to step up and support their local businesses. It's part of a Chamber of Commerce campaign that already includes Dine YQG and Shop YQG, but now it's expanding. It's called Support Local.
We can make a difference. We have an influence on the outcome. We have a way to really make our wallet matter in this case, and we need to make sure that before we make a buying decision, we are thinking through in terms of what is right for us, what is right for a community, what's right for our businesses, and making the right choice when we go out and buy a product or a services.
That new campaign, it launches today. The Chamber saying it's the biggest strategy in its 145-year history. One of the new elements is a Shop YQG program encouraging folks to buy local and then ship global over the holidays. More components of the new push, they're going to release that in the coming weeks through the Chamber. Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkens is in Ottawa for the Big City Mayor's Caucus meeting. It's hosted by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Dilkens says it's a chance to bring local issues to the forefront.
Talking about transit improvements, we're talking about climate change, we're talking about affordable housing, and whether you're in Windsor or whether you're in Vancouver, there is an affordable housing issue that federally we need support in order to help deal with at the local level. We can't solve the problem through the property tax base. And so we're the ones that are going to have to execute and deliver on that, but we need to make sure that the funding streams are in place that allow us to do that.
He says that these meetings are important to make that happen. Dilkens also got some time with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today discussing the land border reopening and other Windsor priorities. We turn now to some sad news about the passing of one of our former colleagues here at CBC Windsor.
As for these bills, you can file them under C. Not for clone, but for canceled. For the Grapeline, I'm Jim Tracy.
Jim Tracy worked here at CBC Windsor in the 80s and the 90s, probably best remembered as one of the video journalists who worked on the TV news segment called Grapeline. Condolences and remembrances are pouring in on social media from friends, former colleagues, remembering his love for his family and for the years that he's coached girls rugby. Tracy left CBC Windsor in 1999 to work as the multimedia manager at Casino Windsor, later retired. We'd like to extend our condolences to Jim's family as well. Tracy was 68. There's something for cyclists to celebrate this week. A small stretch of road in Windsor, the first to have any barriers of any sort between a busy street and people pedaling. So I strapped that helmet on and went on to Cabana near Howard to give the new lane a spin. Flex posts or bollards along a short stretch of a bike lane in Windsor. Ready for its first week of riders, a $10,000 pilot project by the city. It's designed to stop parents from parking in this bike lane while dropping kids off at that school. It also adds a clear barrier so drivers know to share the road. It's a 50-kilometer-an-hour stretch. But we hear from neighbors that's not really something people tend to do. A lot of speeders on this section.
The flexi post bollards are a great idea. They certainly give people driving cars a visual reminder to watch for vulnerable road users, primarily cyclists, but also we know that those bollards will slow traffic down. And we've heard from residents who cycle who say they're noticing traffic is slowing down where the bollards are. The Bike Kitchen in Windsor celebrates the change, but believes more needs to be done to encourage a growing group of riders. There's been a dramatic increase in cycling in the city and in the county. The county has risen and met the desire of their residents for safe cycling spaces. So there's a lot more infrastructure that's keeping cyclists safer across the county. The city hasn't really met that. I mean, we've canceled all of our open streets instead of having more, and we're seeing more in the county. We have done education across the county municipalities all summer long. We did children's learn to rides, we did parents and kids classes, we did kids bike rodeos. We didn't do that. We weren't invited to do that in the city. So it's clear that it hasn't been a priority for the city. Again, super excited to see these bollards coming in. A start is a start. Next in the city, potentially pop-up lanes on University Avenue. There's also going to be cycling tracks out near Hawthorne on the city's east end. 1% of Windsor uses a bike in their daily commute. The city wants to double that
Newton knows there's a desire to ride.
And not everyone is comfortable on a white stripe down Wyandotte Street. People are afraid. And if people are afraid, even if it's perceptions, then we have to do whatever it takes to create a space that makes people feel comfortable. I mean, let's face it, we have to do our bit for climate change. Windsor now has a Vision Zero policy that they're working on. Windsor now has climate change aspirations to be better. Cycling and walking and encouraging active transportation is a huge piece of that, and the city needs to step up, and this is a good first step on Cabana Road. We're delighted to see it. We have to do a lot more.
I clearly have a lot to do when it comes to the cycling as well. Panting on my way back into the office here. Glad to be back behind the desk for a day here. Collect Kennedy comes up next. We're going to catch up, but we're going to take a look at the forecast too, see if this late blast of the summer sun and the early bits of fall will continue. That's next after the break. Star Trek legend William Shatner has boldly gone to the place his alter ego James T. Kirk could only pretend to reach on film or television screens, into space. At age 90, he's now the oldest person ever to do this. Eli Glasner more on Shatner's brief trip to the stars.
We're just at the beginning, but how miraculous that beginning is. After all the promotions and press, the day arrived.
There goes the gantry.
In a Texas field, the countdown finished.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to launch this rocket.
And Shatner and 3 other crew members lifted off. After all the build-up, the short rocket ride where the crew spent a few minutes in microgravity seemed almost anticlimactic.
It's just an encouraging next day at the office.
This aerospace expert says that's kind of the point.
What's important is it's all part of the technologies becoming more mainstream. It's not mainstream yet, but it's getting there. And this is showing the world that increasingly more and more people can do this.
Gentlemen, beam me aboard.
But what got Shatner his ticket to ride is his place in pop culture as James T. Kirk. This PR professional says the casting was brilliant.
When I think about the PR play here, you know, I think about Elon Musk is winning the wealth war, but Bezos is definitely winning the PR war.
In fact, many who work in the space sector credit the captain with pushing them into their profession.
With space exploration, a lot of it is about inspiration. And this guy literally sat in the command chair. It's kind of inspiring to see him go up there.
Captain Kirk.
And by doing that, the 90-year-old accomplishes another goal for Blue Origin founder Jeff Bezos.
I just feel what Bezos did was now he's selling us that this is safe. He's 90, you know, William Shatner's 90 years old. So to bring someone that's 90 up in space, what it ticked off is that this is truly a safe mission.
For all his showbiz bluster, when Shatner returned, he seemed genuinely humbled.
What you have given me is the most profound experience I can imagine. I'm so filled with emotion about what just happened.
A real-world reflection from the captain who inspired so many. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, when we come back, we are joined by Colette Ketty, who we have not shipped off out into space. We've just pushed her a little bit later into the show. She'll give us a look at that forecast next. Before we get to weather, we want to take you to Manitoba because the mild temperatures there, they've extended the golf season. So for this, of course, we're going to bring in Colette to talk us through what we're looking at. Well, we've got here now an unusual tournament that had just took place at the Gilbert Plains Golf Club. Colette?
Yeah. So, you know, the guy's putting, but look where the flag is placed. Now watch this. Just wait. It should go in. It literally takes a hard right at the end and watches. And so why this is so hilarious to me is they do this on purpose in terms of where they place the pins. It's called an Ironman tournament, and they put the pins, for meaning the holes for those who don't play golf, like the flags, and they place those in the craziest spots so that trying to get your putt in is next to impossible. But that, like, who could even imagine it would just get there and it's like, oh, gotta go this way.
I love that. I thought it was rolling back the other way. I don't know if I've ever put a ball and then lost it in the woods. To have both of those things happen.
Yes, and that guy, I'm sure, thought, oh, this one's gonna sink. But anyway, speaking of sinking, perhaps that's my segue into, no, not this weather segment, but I mean our temperatures and where they're going to drop off a little bit, but not really until we get towards the weekend. That's when we're going to see some big changes. And a little inside joke, but I'll let our viewers in on why we're talking about this segment is we're having some data issues. That's how it is with live television. And so this is my map that I have to tell you your weather with. That's okay. I have it up here mostly. So we are looking at conditions tonight where we are going to see things with the temperature falling off towards about 13 degrees for that overnight low. London closer to 11, you get the idea, so that little bit of a range. Now, what's going to be happening, though, is we have the risk of some more showers or thunderstorms through the overnight hours, like pretty isolated. Then into tomorrow, I see a lot of clouds for the morning hours. By the way, this is for Friday, so it didn't even get stuck where I would want it to. But then we're going to have some cloud cover tomorrow morning. Into the later afternoon, we're going to see some rain showers and embedded thunderstorms coming in. Before that system gets here, though, we're going to have that temperature up to 25 because there's going to be a push of a southerly flow tomorrow, and also the humidex into the low 30s. So this is kind of the push before we get into these waves of rain showers, sort of off and on over the next couple of days. And then as we go towards the weekend, Chris, that's when the temperatures come down. And the thing is, it's not just that our daytime highs are going to start coming down. Those overnight lows will be getting into the single digits once again. So those are some of the big changes. So the golf season, that extended golf season, maybe it'll start to slow down a little bit.
Start to slow down. Might sneak off for a beach day tomorrow, though. My God.
Yes, I know. With that kind of humidity, it's like it is mid-October. It is, right?
These surprises that they keep throwing. Hey, this is
By
it.
the way,
It took
I
me
love
off,
the
and I
beard.
figured this was the move. Hey, yeah, no, I don't know.
Looking good.
Thanks for that, Colette. Now, before we leave you, Canada Post, they've issued a news stamp honoring the distinguished career of the late actor Christopher Plummer. Now, the stamp depicts 5 of his many screen and stage roles, with the largest image of Plummer as Prospero, the Shakespeare's The Tempest. Now, the actor was approached by Canada Post in 2019 and chose the roles for the stamp himself. Plummer, who died last year at 91, was an Oscar, Emmy, and Tony Award winner over his 70-year career. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.